Hey guys, this is Noel 3D. I have come up with another Blender Eevee tutorial. In this case, we are going to do an exterior tutorial. Some of you guys have been asking me to do an exterior tutorial, and I have been trying to get a realistic scene, but it was kind of hard to achieve that kind of realism in Blender Eevee. But after a long time of experimenting, I think I have come up with a way that you can also achieve the realism that we have seen in the introduction using real-time render engine in Blender Eevee. And I hope this will be a great help for you guys who are, in the archivist industry, or also you can use it. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the ways that you are going to use it, but I hope it will give you a good point of view how you can approach Eevee. So when we go to the tutorial, first you can find the project files in the description below, and then you can just download it and follow me along. So when we go to the tutorial, the first thing that we need to do is we need to understand Eevee. We need to understand how Eevee is going to perform under different circumstances. So the first thing that we need to do is that. So when you do that, you're going to know the strengths of Eevee and the weakness of Eevee. So the first one, the weakness of Eevee is Eevee does not cast indirect lighting. By default, I mean, you can use light probes, but by default, Eevee does not cast indirect lighting. So let's see that. So just uh, place a sun lamp in your scene. I'm just going to rotate it. I'm just going to move it upward. I'm just going to rotate it right here. I'm just going to go to the wire properties and change this one to 0 since we're going to use Eevee. This is not useful. We don't need any environment lighting. So if I go to the render view, I'm saying something, right? Let me go to right here and just let me increase the intensity of the sunlight to, let me make it 5, so that we have something. So as you can see, the scene is it's getting light from the sun lamp, but there is no indirect lighting happening in our scene. As you can see, this one is, we're supposed to get in the real world, if the sun is like this, we're going to get some kind of bounce lighting right here, right? So that's the one thing that's very necessary when you are dealing with CGI. Indirect lighting is one of the very important things to get a realistic look in your scene. So if I just change this one to cycles, let's say I'm changing this one to cycles. As you can see, I'm getting some kind of bounce lighting. As you can see the wood right here, and something is different. You can also see the glass window. Things are different right now. So the thing that you need to keep that in mind. You can just say me, or you can just, if you are familiar with real-time render engine, you can just say to me, why don't you bake the indirect lighting? So let's do that and let's see the effect. So I have placed an irradiance volume like this. If you want the resolution of the irradiance volume, you can see the X is 4, the Y is 12, and the Z is 5. This is just the number that I have come up with. You have to experiment with the number of this irradiance volume, so that you get a good result. Don't make it as low as the default. The default is 4 in every axis. That's not going to give you a realistic look. And also, don't just crank it up. If you have capable hardware, don't just make this number as high as up you can. Sometimes making this resolution much bigger than it needs to be, it's going to give you artifacts, and it's not going to give you a good result. So just make sure that you have found the optimum number of this resolution. Reflection cube map, just go to light probe and then reflection cube map, and I'm just going to scale it so that it will match my scene like this. So after this, what we need to do is just go to render properties right here, go to indirect lighting, and just hit bake indirect lighting. Just by default, let's see what the default will give us. So as you can see, we kind of getting we're getting an indirect lighting in our scene. As you can see, yeah, it looks good, right? So as you can see, we are getting an indirect lighting. This was black before, but as you can see, we are getting that bounce like that we are looking for. In order to further show you the things, yes, I'm just going to add an HDRI. I'm just going to make this one. If I press 0, as you can see, After I've used the sunlighting, just baked it and placed a sky behind that. As you can see, it doesn't look anything closer to the scene that you have seen in the introduction. As you can see, the trees, when you are closer to them, they look good, but when you are far apart, they don't look good at all. Everything is messed up, as you can see. So you cannot just only use a sun lamp to do your scene. So what we are going to do instead is you're going to use an HDRI. For this case, I'm just going to select the sun. I'm just going to go to properties. I'm just going to make this one to 0. The strength, I'm just going to keep it as 0. And I'm just going to delete this lighting cache. And after that, as you can, when I do that, as you can see, the HDRI is giving a light to our scene, but it's kind of lighting our scene from inside out. We don't have any shadows, we don't have any reflections, we don't have any indirect lighting. Everything is lit up equally from inside out. So that's the second thing that you need to keep in mind. HDRIs in Eevee does not cast any shadows. That's the second thing that you need to keep in mind. But if I just switch this one to cycles, just let's change this to cycles. As you can see, everything is looking good. We are having shadows. We are also having the sun that's coming from the HDR. Everything is looking good. Everything is looking good. But if I just change this to Eevee, everything that we have seen in cycles, we don't have it right here. So that's the second thing that you need to keep in mind. So how are we going to approach this one? How are we going to get the reflections or the lights that's coming from the HDRI and also get the shadows that we need? So what we need to do is we're going to bake it using this HDRI. So if I just make this one to, by default, the sky strength is supposed to be 1. I'm just, in case if you are wondering, I'm using a free add-on called Easy HDRI. It's a free add-on. You can just go and download it. You can watch another tutorials how you can install this Easy HDRI. If I just hit bake again, so as you can see, things are better than the previous one, right? When I have baked it, Eevee kind of tried to grasp the information from the HDRI and give us that shadows and the indirect lighting according to the HDRI that it's used. But it's kind of closer, or I will not use the word closer, but it's kind of better than the previous one. But as you can see, if I see behind the car, I mean below the car, we don't have any shadows. And also, as you can see in the plant right here, we're not having a shadows that's clear and accurate as you have seen in the cycles. So what we need to do is we need to go to the Eevee settings, just activate this ambient occlusion. I think we're seeing some change, right? We're seeing shadows or contact shadows wherever there's a close connection between two objects. As you can see, if you go to this, the connection, the connection between this leaf and the ground, if I activate ambient occlusion, as you can see, there is some change. So what I need to do is change this one to 1, the precision. I'm just going to make this one to 2. Since we are dealing with an exterior scene, I think with my experimentation, 2 meters it's good. Don't make it higher than 2 meters, but I think 2 meters will give you a good result. So after that, what we need to do is activate screen space reflections. As you can see right here, we're going to get a reflection that's on screen space. When I activate refraction, as if you have a glass object in your scene, refraction is going to happen and you're going to get a good refraction. As you can see, the change right here. So after that, what we need to do is go to shadows, change this one to 1024. For this case, I'm just going to activate hybrid depth, and I'm just going to change the cube map size to 1024, the diffuse occlusion to 64. So we're going to experiment using different HDRIs. As you can see, let me change this one to let me make it this one. And then, by the way, you can find all this HDRIs from HDRI Haven, or I think the new name is polyhaven.com. You can just go and download a free HDRIs. All these HDRIs are from there. So if I just use this one and just bake it again, and let's see the result that we are going to get. So I have finished baking the scene. So as you can see, if I just show you right here, this spot is supposed to be dark. The Eevee has done a good job right around here. As you can see, it's darker, but right around here, we're kind of seeing a bright spot. And also, if you go to right here, we kind of hide this light bleeds everywhere. And also right here, as you can see, we have that light bleed. So the reason for that is, if you just show you the HDRI has a sunlight, or this is just a bright spot in an image. If you just think it as technically, so that's why we are getting a light bleed in this scene. But if I change this one to, let me change this one to an overcast scene, this one, as you can see, this one is an overcast scene. If I hit bake again, let's see the change that we're going to get. So as you can see, this is the result that we have. So as you can see, we don't have a light bleed problem that we have had earlier in the previous HDRI. So from this, what you can understand is Eevee does behave differently when you are using different kinds of HDRI. So the one thing that I advise you is always when you are baking indirect lighting, or when you are baking an exterior scene using an HDRI, make sure that you are using a scene with an overcast HDRI, or an HDRI which has an overcast, which is an overcast. Make sure that to keep that in mind. So the next thing that we are going to do is just, this one is already selected, and go to the object data properties and change the intensity of the irradiance volume to 0.75. That's the next thing that we are going to do. So if I just change that and bake it again, let's see the change that we are going to get. So here's the result. So the reason I have made this one to be 0.75 is I want to make the scene darker. That's why I have made it. If I just make this one to 0.5 and bake it again. So as you can see, after I have made it to be 0.5, the scene is a lot darker than the previous one. So that's why you change the intensity of this one. So if the HDRI is making you see it a lot brighter, you just change the intensity so that your scene will become darker. So I will show you the advantage of making this one 0.75. Later we are going to use our lights. You are going to use sunlight and area lights to light up the scene. So as you can see, I have placed a sunlight right here, a sun lamp. So I've placed it in a way that the angle will be in a sensate direction, as you can see. And also after that, I have placed an area light right here. As you can see, if I just press H, press Alt H, you can see the effect. The scene is more brighter than the previous one. That's the effect. So what we need to do is next, just this one is make the intensity to 5, and this one intensity is 10,000. I'm just going to make this one to 5,000 for now. So after we have done this, what I need to do is make this one to 0.75 again. The sky strings of the HDRI. Now, after I have placed this area lamp and sun lamp, I'm just going to bake it again. Let's see the change that we have. So now this is the change that we are getting. As you can see, things are looking better, right? They're looking closer to the scene that you have seen in the introduction. So what I will do is just select this one, the sunlight, and click it. And I'm just going to make this one to 50 so that the scene will be much brighter. I think it's way more bright, right? I'm just going to make it this to 5 as it is. I'm just going to, as you can see, if I just get closer to this one, I'm just going to increase the angle. Whenever I'm increasing the angle, the shadow is becoming softer. So you can just adjust the softness of I'm just going to make it right around here so that it won't be that much sharp, And then after that, if I just go to right here, let me see the change that's this one is going to give it. In this specific scene, as you can see, the shadows are now becoming a straight line. if I just change this one to the value that it was before, to 1024, as you can see, the shadows, they are kind of, you know, zigzag kind of feeling, as you can see if I just zoom out and zoom in. But if I change this one to the highest possible value, as you can see, the shadows now are accurate. So this is the way that you can get an accurate shadows in your scene. And the next thing that you need to do is, what I will do is just, I need more lighting in my scene, but I cannot just, you know, increase the intensity of this one. So I am going to add another 2 lights in my scene. So as you can see, I have added 2 lights in my scene on this position, which both of them are focusing on the middle house, which is the focus of this render, right? So I have made them to be 5000 in the color. You can just make the color whatever you want, just make it, you know, closer to realistic. So as you can see, this is the effect that I'm getting. So if I press 0 in my keyboard, and if I just let me just drag this one right here, and then change this one to 3D viewport, press 0, go to the render view, disable this show overlays, and I'm just going to work right here. If I press H and then again H, as you can see the effect that this one is giving us. If I press Alt H, you can see this one is more brighter. So I'm just going to make this one to 10,000 again. So I think everything is looking better than the previous one, right? So the next thing that we need to do is, as you can see, the scene is, the HDRI that's visible in the scene, it's not nowhere near compatible to the scene that we have created. First of all, the scene that we have created is a sunset scene, right? So we need an HDRI. That's a sunset HDRI. We're not going to bake anything after this, just this HDRI is going to act, it's only going to act as a background. You can also just do this in Photoshop or any other software, but it's better that you do it right here. So just find an HDRI that's closer to your scene, you know, which is a sunset scene. So I'm just going to do that. So I have found an HDRI that's going to match my scene, as you can see. So the next thing that we need to do after we have placed an HDRI is we need to place some lights, some plants, some grasses right around you. As you can see, this is a flat surface. It needs a grass so that it will look realistic. So after you have placed the grass, the next thing that we need is a realistic high poly trees. As you can see, that these trees, they can only be used from afar. If you if you just place them for a closer shot, they won't look anything closer to realistic. So make sure that you have found, or you can just buy it. There are a lot of add-ons for specifically done for Blender, or you can just go and look for realistic trees from different sites. I am sure you will find free trees, or you can just buy them so that you can make your life easier. So what I will do is I'm just going to place those grasses in the trees, and we'll see what it will look like. For the grass, you can use G-Scatter. It's a free an add-on. It's going to only work for Blender versions that are greater than 2.93. So as you can see, guys, I have added a lot of things. I have added 2 things. Trees, as you can see, this tree is a high poly tree. I have made this one myself, and also I have just placed it. It's a pretty high poly, so it's making my scene a little slower. And also I have places a grass. As you can see, I have placed a grass right here. I have used the free Blender G-Scatter add-on, as I have said earlier. As you can see, the scene is more lively than the previous one. That's something that you can clearly see. Before this high poly trees and the grasses were added, it was kind of bland. But after I have added this, the scene is more realistic than the previous one. So this kind of things are the things that will make your scene more realistic. So if you just place different kinds of high poly plants in your scene, your scene is going to be more realistic than the previous one, or your previous one without those high poly assets. And make sure that you are not using that much grass in your scene, since it's going to make your scene a lot slower. So after you have finished that, what you need to do is just go to this rendering properties, just adjust the resolution. I'm not going to make it greater than 1080p, since it's going to take much time, as I've said earlier. With this one, with this resolution, it Eevee took 1 minute to render one single frame, even though I have used a less amount of grass materials. In your case, if you have a less performing PC, make sure that you are avoiding particle systems. Just make sure that you are avoiding those particle systems as much as you can. Don't use those grass materials as much as you can. Just that's my tip for you. And make sure that you optimize your sync by using low poly acid. As you can see, I have only used 3 high poly acids in my in the trees. If I just select this one and I press H to hide it, as you can see, I don't even need it. I've placed one right here, one right here, and one right here. The other ones, they are low poly acids. Since they are not in front of my scene, they are not visible. As you can see, they are behind. So make sure that you have optimized your scene whenever you are dealing with an exterior scene, since it's going to take much more time than an interior scene. So this is the tip that I'm going to give you. So just make the resolution to 1080p, or if you have really capable software, you can just hardware, you can make it greater than this one. So after that, just you can adjust the FPS right here, and then um, change this one to FFmpeg video, or you can just render it using a PNG and merge it later using the video editor, or you can just use FFmpeg video, and then just change this one to H264 in MP4, and change the output quality to high quality, and then all you have to do is just hit and then render animation right there, and your animation will render. So guys, this is all for today. I hope this was a really great insight or an information when you are dealing with exterior render using a Blender real-time render engine Eevee. I hope you have gained the information that you need in order to deal with your ArcViz projects or any other exterior projects that you have come up with. Peace out. See you in the next tutorial.